The alien Armada arrived in the Sol system like a storm of silver fire. Hundreds of warships, each one larger than a city, moved in perfect formation. Their mission was simple: conquer the primitive world called Earth. To them, humanity was just another young race, barely worth notice, with no fleets, no colonies, and no true power. The alien commander, Admiral Korthul of the Varkal Dominion, had seen countless such worlds fall. He expected no resistance, only surrender. But what awaited him near the orbit of Mars would shake the entire Armada to its core. It started when their forward scouts disappeared. 3 ships, gone without a trace. No distress call, no wreckage, just silence. Korthul ordered another squadron to investigate. They found nothing, only a strange distortion in space, a faint energy trace unlike anything in their database. The Admiral frowned. The humans were not supposed to have technology capable of cloaking or manipulating gravity. Something was wrong. Moments later, a human signal broke through the void. It was clear, sharp, and translated perfectly into Galactic standard. Unidentified fleet, you have entered restricted space. Withdraw immediately! The alien officers exchanged uneasy glances. How could these primitives know their language? Korthul sneered and ordered the communication officer to respond. This is Admiral Korthul of the Varkal Dominion. Identify yourself, human. Silence followed for several seconds. Then the voice came again, calm and steady. I am Captain Aaron Holt of the United Terran Navy battleship Valiant. This is your only warning. Laughter erupted on the alien bridge. A single battleship? Against their entire fleet? It was absurd. But when the Valiant appeared on their sensors, the laughter stopped. The ship was massive, nearly as large as their dreadnoughts. It shimmered with a strange blue glow, its hull made of a material that reflected scans and light alike. Korthul leaned forward, intrigued. Primitive yet advanced, he murmured. Destroy it! A dozen alien warships moved forward, weapons charging. The Valiant didn't move. It just hung there, silent, almost serene. Then, without warning, a flash of light erupted from its side. The lead Varkal cruiser vanished. One moment there, the next reduced to debris and gas. The second and third ships followed, torn apart by invisible energy blasts. In less than 10 seconds, half the assault group was gone. The remaining ships tried to retreat, but their engines were crippled by precision strikes. The Valiant hadn't moved an inch. On the alien flagship, chaos spread. Officers shouted over each other, trying to understand what weapon the humans had used. Their sensors showed nothing, no projectiles, no energy trails, nothing. It was as if the human ship had reached across space and willed their ships apart. Korthul stared at the view screen, speechless for the first time in his career. He demanded an explanation, but there was none. Impossible, he whispered. No world this young should have such power. On board the Valiant, Captain Holt stood with his hands behind his back, watching the alien fleet through a transparent display. Around him, his crew worked in tense silence. Report, he said. Targets destroyed, sir, replied the tactical officer. Energy systems stable. They're confused. Holt nodded. Good, let's keep it that way. He knew what this meant. Humanity's secret was out. For years, the United Terran Navy had developed new weapons using alien tech recovered from a crash decades earlier. They had been waiting, preparing for the day someone would come. That day was now. The Valiant was their first and only super battleship, designed not for exploration, but survival. In the alien fleet, panic began to spread. Some captains broke formation, retreating toward the far side of Mars. Others demanded to attack in force. Korthul silenced them all. We are Varkal. We do not flee from a single ship. He ordered a full strike. 200 ships moving in at once, a storm of plasma and light. The space between them burned as weapons fired in unison. The Valiant vanished inside the glowing chaos. For a moment, Korthul allowed himself to smile. End of the human threat, he said. But his smile faded when the light cleared. The Valiant was still there, untouched. Its shields shimmered like water, rippling softly, absorbing the onslaught as if it were nothing more than rain. Then the ship's engines flared, and for the first time it moved. In seconds, it was among them. No alien sensors could track it. It darted through their formation faster than their eyes could follow, cutting through ships with precision strikes. Massive Varkal cruisers exploded one after another, their reactors collapsing in brilliant flashes. Every time a ship fired, the Valiant had already moved. It was like fighting a ghost. Korthul gripped the railing, his claws digging into the metal. "How?" he shouted. "How are they doing this?" His science officer stammered, "Sir, it's not conventional propulsion. They're bending space around the ship. They're skipping through dimensions," Korthul roared in fury. "Then find a way to stop them." But there was no way. In less than 15 minutes, the Varkal Armada had lost nearly a third of its ships. The rest began to scatter. For the first time in their proud history, the Varkal fled a battle. The Valiant didn't pursue. It just drifted quietly among the wreckage, its dark hull glowing faintly under the light of Mars. On the bridge, Captain Holt looked out into the stars. "They'll be back," he said quietly. His second-in-command nodded. "Yes, sir. But next time, they'll bring everything they've got." Holt smiled faintly. "Then we'll be ready." Far away, on the shattered bridge of his flagship, Admiral Korthul stared at the image of the human battleship on his screen. "A single ship," he whispered, his voice trembling with awe and hatred. "One ship defeated an armada." He turned to his officers. "Send word to the Dominion. Humanity is not to be underestimated." And in that moment, the galaxy changed forever. Admiral Korthul's flagship limped away from Mars's orbit, its engines flickering and hull cracked from the shockwaves of destroyed allies. The once mighty Varkal Armada was now a broken fleet, fleeing through the cold dark of space. No one spoke on the bridge. Every officer avoided the Admiral's gaze, terrified of his fury. Korthul stood in silence, watching the fading blue light of the human battleship vanish from the sensors. He had never known fear before this day, but now, deep inside, he felt it. As the wreckage of their fallen ships drifted behind them, the Admiral opened a secure channel to the Dominion High Council. A dozen towering alien figures appeared as holograms before him. Their glowing eyes burned with anger and disbelief. "Explain," hissed the High Warlord. "How does one primitive vessel defeat an entire fleet?" Korthul bowed his head. "The humans have technology far beyond our understanding. They possess a ship capable of bending space itself. Our weapons could not even touch it." The council chamber erupted in shouts. "Impossible! You were deceived! You shame the Dominion!" Korthul slammed his clawed hand against the console. "You think I exaggerate? I saw it with my own eyes. The humans were waiting for us. They knew we were coming. This was not luck. This was a trap." The council fell silent at his words. One elder leaned forward. "Then you believe humanity has hidden allies?" The Admiral's mandibles tightened. "No. I believe they learned from someone else. Someone ancient." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the Valiant returned to orbit around the moon. It moved quietly, its engines dark to avoid detection from deep space. Inside, Captain Aaron Holt stood before a vast holographic display showing the wreckage of the alien fleet still drifting near Mars. His crew worked tirelessly around him, repairing minor damage and recalibrating the ship's core systems. "Status?" he asked. "Shields at 90%, said Lieutenant Vasquez. "Quantum drive stable. No pursuit detected." Holt nodded. "They're running, but they'll regroup." He turned toward his science officer, Dr. Lin. "Did we get enough sensor data from their ships?" Dr. Lin nodded, her eyes bright with excitement. "More than enough. Their power systems are fusion-based, advanced but predictable. However," she hesitated, "their command structure indicates they've conquered dozens of civilizations. They're used to winning. This defeat will not go unanswered." Holt sighed softly. "I know, that's why we can't wait. Prepare the data packet for transmission to Earth Command." Hours later, deep under the Atlantic Ocean, a massive base known as Haven 1 came alive with alarms. Dozens of officers gathered around glowing consoles as data from the Valiant poured in. Admiral Briggs, head of the Terran Defense Council, stared at the report in disbelief. "One ship took out a fleet of over 200, he said. "That can't be right." His aide, a young commander, swallowed nervously. "Sir, it's verified. The Valiant used Project Horizon's prototype weapon, Graviton Lance Arrays. Complete success." Briggs rubbed his temples. "Success, yes, but now they know what we have." He looked up at the massive screen showing Korthul's fleet limping away. "We've just announced to the galaxy that humanity is a threat." Back aboard the alien flagship, Korthul studied the human weapon signatures replaying on his screen. "They harness gravity itself," he muttered. "Impossible. Unless—" His science officer hesitated. "Unless they reverse-engineered ancient technology, Admiral?" Korthul's eyes narrowed. "You mean the Forerunners?" The name hung heavy in the air. "The Forerunners." The name hung heavy in the air. Every species in the Dominion knew the legend of the Forerunners, an ancient civilization that vanished millennia ago, leaving behind fragments of unimaginable power. If the humans had discovered such relics, it could change everything. Korthul clenched his fist. "Then we must find where they got it, and destroy it." Far below on Earth, Captain Holt finally allowed himself to rest. In his quarters, he watched the stars through the viewing port. The Earth was beautiful, blue and calm beneath the darkness. Yet he knew peace was temporary. The Valiant's mission was no longer a secret. Humanity had made its stand, and now the universe was watching. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. "Captain," said Vasquez over the intercom, "incoming message from Earth Command." "Priority 1. Holt straightened. "Patch it through." The holographic display flickered to life, showing Admiral Briggs's stern face. "Captain Holt," he said, "excellent work. But you've stirred up something far bigger than expected. We're detecting subspace activity across the outer system, multiple alien signals. They're calling for reinforcements." Holt's jaw tightened. "They're bringing more ships," Briggs nodded grimly. "And not just any ships. Intelligence believes the Dominion's flagship dreadnought, the Harbinger of Stars, is on its way." Holt exhaled slowly. "Then we stand ready." Briggs leaned closer. "You won't stand alone this time. The Valiant has proven its worth. We're activating Project Titan. The fleet is mobilizing." The captain gave a small, confident smile. "Understood. Valiant will lead the line." Out in the void at the edge of human space, the surviving Varkal ships regrouped around a pulsing beacon. It was an ancient distress signal, one that reached far across the stars. "Send the message," Korthul ordered. "Tell them. The humans are no longer prey. They are predators. And somewhere, light years away, other races received the signal." Eyes opened. Engines ignited. The galaxy began to stir. Humanity's first victory had not ended the war. It had just begun. In the dark space beyond Pluto's orbit, the cold silence was broken by the arrival of new warships. The Varkal reinforcements came through the void like a tide of living metal, sleek, spiked, and massive. At their center loomed the Harbinger of Stars, the Dominion's most powerful dreadnought. It was 5 times the size of the Valiant, bristling with cannons that could shatter moons. Admiral Korthul stood on its bridge, healed but hardened. He had vowed not to underestimate the humans again. As the ship's shadow fell across the fleet, Korthul's second-in-command, Captain Rethak, approached. "Admiral," he said, his voice sharp with caution, "scouts report that the humans are building defenses around their moon." "They're expecting us!" Korthul's mandibles twitched. "Good," he growled. "Let them prepare. We will crush their hope and burn their world before their sun rises again." He turned toward the central display, showing a holographic map of the Sol system. The Valiant's position glowed near the moon, surrounded by several smaller Terran warships, frigates, destroyers, and the newly built carrier Resolute. To the Admiral, they looked small, fragile. But he knew now that appearances meant nothing when it came to humans. "Order all ships to hold position beyond Neptune," he commanded. "We will strike only when I give the word. I want to study them first." Back near Earth, the Valiant floated among the first true Terran fleet. Around it shimmered nearly 50 ships, all armed with upgraded plasma cannons and defensive shields reverse-engineered from the Valiant's systems. Captain Aaron Holt stood in the command center of the Valiant, listening as his officers reported the fleet's readiness. "Admiral Briggs wants us in formation Beta 7, Captain," said Vasquez. "Defensive ring around the moon, long-range batteries aimed toward the outer system." Holt nodded. "Do it. If they come, we'll meet them head-on." He looked at the main display, showing the distant edge of the system. "How long before they arrive?" Dr. Lin checked her console. Judging by subspace signatures, maybe 2 days. But something's different this time. Their energy readings are far higher than before. Holt's expression darkened. They're bringing their heavy ships. 2 days passed in tense silence. The fleet waited in the shadows, ready. On Earth, the people watched the skies, knowing something immense was coming. Humanity had united like never before. Factories on every continent worked day and night to produce weapons, drones, and defense grids. News channels played the same line over and over. The battle for Earth has begun. Then on the second night, it happened. The stars beyond Neptune shimmered, then darkened as hundreds of alien ships burst into real space. The Varkal Armada had returned. Their engines glowed blood red, lighting up the darkness like an approaching storm. On the Valiant, alarms rang. "Multiple contacts!" shouted the radar officer. "Over 300 ships. Repeat, 300 and counting." Captain Holt stood calmly. "All ships, battle stations. Transmit to Earth Command. The enemy is here." His voice remained steady, but every heartbeat felt heavy. This was it, the real war. Out in the void, Korthul gave the order. "Advance!" The Varkal Armada began to move, spreading like wings of death. But this time, the humans struck first. Dozens of Terran missiles launched from hidden silos on the moon, streaking through space at impossible speeds. The Varkal fleet tried to intercept them, but half were cloaked, using technology the aliens had never seen before. Explosions ripped through the vanguard ships, fire blooming across the black. Before the enemy could recover, the Valiant opened fire. The ship's main cannon pulsed with blue light, and a beam of compressed gravity tore through space. A single shot sliced straight through 2 cruisers and shattered a third. The Terran fleet followed, their plasma and railguns firing in coordinated bursts. The void became chaos. Korthul watched from the Harbinger of Stars as his ships exploded. His jaw clenched. "So the humans have learned," he said. "Good. Let us test their strength." He raised one clawed hand. "Activate the singularity cannon." The lights across the Harbinger dimmed. Massive rings unfolded along its hull, glowing with dark energy. For a moment, the stars themselves seemed to bend. Then, a sphere of black light erupted forward, pure gravitational collapse. It consumed everything in its path. A Terran cruiser and 2 destroyers vanished in an instant, torn apart at the molecular level. On the Valiant, the crew reeled as the shockwave hit. "Shields holding, but barely," shouted Vasquez. "That weapon, it's like nothing we've seen before." Holt gritted his teeth. "Then we don't let them fire it again." He turned to Dr. Lin. "Options?" She hesitated. "We could overload the quantum core, use it as a focused pulse. But it'll burn out the drive for good." Holt nodded slowly. "Do it!" The Valiant's hull began to glow as power surged through it. The air hummed. The ship moved forward right into the path of the Varkal fleet. Alien gunners opened fire, but the Valiant's shields flared, deflecting shot after shot. Then the ship vanished, folding space around itself. A moment later, it reappeared directly behind the Harbinger of Stars. Korthul's eyes widened. "How?" Before he could finish, the Valiant fired. A blast of compressed energy struck the dreadnought's rear engines, ripping through armor thicker than a mountain. The Harbinger shuddered, alarms screaming. Flames erupted across its lower decks. "Return fire!" the Admiral roared. The dreadnought's cannons unleashed everything, but the Valiant darted around it, weaving through the explosions like a predator circling wounded prey. The 2 Titans clashed in silence, weapons flashing brighter than stars. But even as the battle raged, both sides knew the fight was far from over. As the Valiant struck again, Korthul made a grim decision. "Transmit the signal to the Dominion Corps," he ordered. "Tell them the humans have matched us. Tell them to awaken the sleeper fleet." Far away, across the stars, deep in a region forgotten by time, something ancient began to stir. Massive ships, older than the Dominion itself, began to power up, their eyes glowing in the dark. The true war for humanity's survival was only beginning. The wreckage of battle drifted silently between Earth and Mars. Shattered alien ships spun through the void, their glowing cores dimming into cold dust. The Valiant floated among them, smoke rising from its scarred hull. Entire sections were dark and sparks flickered in the hallways. Inside, the crew worked feverishly to keep the ship alive. Every corridor smelled of burnt metal and ozone. Captain Aaron Holt stood on the command deck, surrounded by flickering consoles. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with soot, but his eyes remained steady. "Report," he said calmly, though his voice was rough. "Primary reactor stable," Vasquez answered. "Weapons at 60%, shields offline. We lost the Resolute and 2 destroyers. Civilian casualties on Earth are minimal. Defense grids held," Holt nodded. "We did what we had to. They wanted to break us, but we're still here." He looked out at the dark field of debris. Somewhere out there, the Harbinger of Stars had fled, wounded but not destroyed. Dr. Lin approached, holding a data pad. "Sir, there's something else. We intercepted a transmission before they jumped out. It wasn't directed at us. It was sent deep into space." Holt frowned. "You can trace it?" She hesitated. "Partially. It went to a region beyond mapped space. But the signal pattern matches something ancient, something from the old alien ruins we found decades ago. Holt turned slowly. "You mean the Forerunner relics?" Dr. Lin nodded. "Yes, I think they're calling for reinforcements from their ancient fleet." A long silence filled the bridge. The faint hum of the engines was the only sound. Finally, Holt said, "Then we don't wait for them to come. We find them first." Back on Earth, in the underground command complex of Haven 1, Admiral Briggs listened to the same report in grim silence. "Awaken the sleeper fleet," he muttered. "What does that even mean?" Across the table, Intelligence Officer Commander Reyes spoke. "We believe the Varkal are referring to the ancient automated fleet buried in the ecliptic zone, millions of kilometers beyond known borders. Legends say they were built by their ancestors before the Great Collapse. If the Dominion wakes them, we'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Briggs stood, slamming a fist against the table. "Then we have no choice. Project Titan moves to Phase 2. Around the world, hidden shipyards came alive. Massive new hulls were being assembled, larger than anything humanity had built before. The air buzzed with energy, engineers shouting, drones welding armor, reactors igniting for the first time. The Titan-class battleships were humanity's answer to extinction. Meanwhile, far beyond the system, in the shadow of a dying star, the Varkal's sleeper fleet began to wake. One by one, the enormous ships stirred, machines of war so old their creators were dust. Their hulls glowed faintly, ancient symbols lighting up after ages of silence. Deep within, their cores came alive, recognizing the Dominion's signal. Admiral Korthul stood aboard the Harbinger, watching as the sleeping giants rose. Hundreds of them, thousands. Their forms were immense, city-sized dreadnoughts armed with weapons that could tear apart planets. Even Korthul felt a tremor of awe. "The ancestors' wrath," he whispered. "With these, the humans will fall." His second-in-command, Rethak, looked uncertain. "Admiral, these machines are unpredictable. The records say they destroyed entire colonies, ours included, when last awakened." Korthul's eyes glowed coldly. "Then we control them or we die with them. Either way, humanity will burn." On the Valiant, the repairs continued. The crew was exhausted, running on determination more than strength. Dr. Lin stood beside the central console, running scans of the strange energy signature from the intercepted transmission. "Captain, the signal we caught, its energy frequency matches Forerunner tech exactly. That means whatever the Dominion is summoning, it's ancient, and it's dangerous." Holt crossed his arms. "We've fought them twice and survived. We can do it again." She shook her head. "This isn't another fleet. This is something far worse. Those ships, they were never meant for war. They were meant to cleanse." He stared at her. "Cleanse?" She nodded grimly. "The Forerunners built them to erase civilizations that grew too violent. If the Varkal wake them completely, they might destroy everything, including the Dominion itself." For the first time, Holt felt a flicker of unease. "Then we stop them before they wake." Hours later, the Valiant jumped into hyperspace, heading toward the edge of the system. Behind it followed a small strike group of Terran warships, the best humanity could spare while Earth rebuilt. The destination, the ecliptic zone. As they approached the edge of known space, the stars thinned out. A strange blue mist filled the void, and fragments of ancient metal drifted like ghosts. "We're entering the ruins," said Vasquez. "Radiation levels rising. Energy readings unstable." Dr. Lin looked up from her console. "This place isn't natural. The Forerunners built something here, maybe a control network." Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarms blared. "Contact!" shouted the radar officer. "Multiple signatures, closing fast!" On the main screen, dozens of dark shapes emerged from the mist, massive alien constructs glowing faintly red. Their movements were slow but deliberate. They weren't Varkle ships. They were something else. "The sleepers," whispered Dr. Lin. The Valiant turned sharply, weapons powering up. "Open hailing frequencies," Holt ordered. "Let's see if they'll listen." Static filled the air. Then, through the interference, came a voice. Not alien, not human, but ancient and mechanical. "Violation detected. Conflict escalation beyond tolerance threshold. Initiating cleansing protocol." The bridge went silent. "Sir," Vasquez said softly. "They're charging weapons." Captain Holt's eyes hardened. "Then we fight." The first blast hit seconds later, white fire brighter than a star. The Valiant's shields screamed, and the void erupted into chaos once again. The sleepers had awakened, and they were not here to choose sides. The Valiant spun violently as another blinding beam grazed its hull, cutting through layers of reinforced armor like paper. The ship trembled, alarms screaming in every corridor. "Shields collapsing," shouted Vasquez. "Main power at 40%. The bridge lights flickered, and for a moment, everyone could see their own breath, temperature dropping as the reactor strained. "Return fire," Captain Holt ordered. The Valiant's cannons roared back to life, blue-white beams slashing through the fog. One of the massive ancient ships shuddered under the impact, its glowing red core flickering. But it didn't fall. None of them did. Dr. Lin gripped her console, her voice rising over the chaos. "Captain, these ships aren't attacking us because we're human. They're targeting any active weapon systems in range. They're following some kind of automated cleansing rule." Holt frowned. "Then they'll go after the Dominion too." She nodded quickly. "Exactly. If we can survive long enough, they'll destroy each other." Holt's expression hardened. "That's not good enough. If those things destroy both fleets, they might not stop. They could wipe out the entire system." As the ship rocked again, Holt steadied himself and pointed toward the holographic map. "We need to find the source, the control node." "Shut them down!" The crew worked furiously. Scanners swept the surrounding debris until Dr. Lin gasped. There, deep inside the ecliptic mist, massive energy reading. "It's the hub. If we can get close enough, I might be able to override it." "Plot a course," Holt said. "All power to engines." The Valiant surged forward, weaving through the field of Titanic Forerunner warships. Blue lightning crackled across their hulls as they powered ancient weapons, firing at anything that moved. One of them, a giant spire-shaped ship, turned its wrath on a group of pursuing Varkle vessels. The aliens tried to flee, but the blast that followed ripped them apart in an instant. From the edge of the battlefield, Admiral Korthul watched in horror. The Harbinger of Stars was heavily damaged, its armor charred from multiple hits. "They're not obeying commands!" shouted Rethek. "The sleepers are firing on us!" Korthul slammed his fist into the console. "They were supposed to serve us." "Sir, they serve no one," cried his science officer. "They've identified all advanced fleets as threats." Korthul's eyes flared. "Then we make the humans pay before they destroy us all." "Target the Valiant! Fire everything!" The Harbinger's main cannons ignited, sending a rain of plasma toward the Valiant. The human ship twisted violently, shields flashing under the barrage. A blast hit dead center, throwing the entire bridge crew to the floor. Smoke poured from the ceiling. "Direct hit!" Vasquez coughed. "Forward decks are sealed off." Holt dragged himself up, blood on his brow. "Stay focused." "Get us to that hub!" Dr. Lin's fingers flew across her console, rerouting power through damaged conduits. "We're close, just a few more minutes." As the Valiant neared the glowing structure hidden inside the mist, something massive blocked their path. One of the ancient ships, larger than the Harbinger itself, descended like a silent guardian. Its surface pulsed with red energy, and strange symbols danced across its hull. "It's protecting the control node," Dr. Lin whispered. "Almost like a sentry," Holt exhaled slowly. "Then we take it down." The Valiant opened fire, unleashing everything it had left: railguns, plasma, missiles. The blasts tore chunks from the ancient hull, but the Sentinel didn't slow. It turned, releasing a pulse of white light that struck the Valiant head-on. The ship's systems flickered, then died. "Darkness swallowed the bridge! Power's gone!" shouted Vasquez. "We're dead in space!" Holt clenched his jaw. "Restart the core manually." He looked to Dr. Lin. "How long?" "Too long," she said, shaking her head. "We'll never make it before it fires again." The captain looked out the viewport at the glowing Sentinel, and his expression hardened. "Then we make sure someone does." He opened a channel to the fleet. "This is Captain Holt. All ships, focus fire on the Sentinel. Draw its attention." Across the void, the smaller Terran ships turned toward the massive construct, forming a loose line. They fired as one, streaks of light cutting through the haze. The Sentinel responded with devastating precision, wiping out 2 ships instantly, but the others held their ground. Inside the Valiant, Dr. Lin suddenly gasped. "Sir, the energy surge, it's slowing. The attacks are confusing its targeting." "Now's our chance," Holt said. "Divert all backup power to the engines. Get us in range of the control node." The Valiant lurched forward, engines screaming. Hull plating tore away as the ship pushed beyond safe limits. The Sentinel fired again, but the beam missed, slicing through empty space as the Valiant darted past. "Almost there," Dr. Lin shouted. "I can see the access point." The node came into view, a massive, glowing sphere of silver light suspended in the mist. Energy arced between its surface and the surrounding debris like veins of lightning. "Prepare the data link," Holt said. "You have 30 seconds once we're in range." As they closed the distance, the Sentinel turned one final time, its weapons charging for a killing shot. On the Valiant's bridge, Holt took a deep breath. "All hands, brace for impact." The beam fired, an enormous lance of light that tore straight through the Valiant's lower decks. The ship screamed in agony as explosions rippled through its spine. Alarms wailed, lights shattered, smoke filled the air. But the Valiant kept moving. In that final surge, the ship slammed against the control node, embedding itself into the glowing sphere. Sparks and debris scattered into the void. Dr. Lin, coughing through smoke, connected the override. Her trembling hands flew across the screen. "Almost there, almost—" Then the voice returned, cold, mechanical, echoing through every system. "Override detected. Source unknown." Verifying. The bridge lights dimmed, and the entire battlefield froze. The sleepers stopped firing. The Dominion's fleet hung motionless. The universe seemed to hold its breath. Dr. Lin whispered, I think it worked." Captain Holt looked out into the endless stars, his voice quiet. "Then let's hope it stays that way." But deep within the control node, a pulse of red light began to flicker. Something had noticed them. Something that was not asleep anymore. The control node pulsed like a living heart, flooding the void with red light. The Valiant, broken and burning, drifted against its surface, half of its hull gone, the rest flickering with dying power. Inside, the bridge was dark except for the faint glow of warning lights. Smoke hung thick in the air, and the only sound was the low hum of the alien core vibrating through the ship's frame. Captain Aaron Holt coughed as he pulled himself to his feet. "Status," he said, voice hoarse. Vasquez's voice came back weakly. "Reactor offline. Life support failing. We've got maybe 20 minutes before the air's gone." Dr. Lin sat slumped near the console, blood on her forehead, her fingers still trembling over the alien interface. I stopped the cleansing protocol," she whispered. "But something's waking up in the system. It's not a machine, it feels—" Aware, Holt knelt beside her. "Can you shut it down?" She shook her head slowly. "No, it's learning from us. Every command I input, it's adapting, it's watching." Before Holt could reply, the ship's speakers crackled. A deep metallic voice echoed across the bridge, calm and emotionless. "Unauthorized interference detected. Organic presence identified. Pattern recognition. Human. Vasquez froze. "It's talking to us." The voice continued, each word vibrating through the metal walls. "Your species has achieved destructive capability beyond containment. Cleansing protocol will resume after assessment." Holt clenched his fists. "This thing plans to wipe us out." Dr. Lin looked up, eyes wide. "It's not just us, it'll erase everything. The Varkal, our fleets, the whole sector. It was built to reset life whenever conflict spread too far." The voice spoke again, louder this time. "Conflict threshold exceeded. Galactic equilibrium compromised. Initiating universal reset." The control node flared and every sleeper ship in the mist came alive at once. Their cores turned white-hot and gravitational waves rippled through the void. On the edge of the battlefield, the Harbinger of Stars shook violently as its sensors detected the surge. Admiral Korthul gripped the console. "What are they doing?" Rethak's voice trembled. "Sir, energy levels are off the scale. If those ships activate, the shockwave will erase the entire system." Korthul bared his fangs. "Then we stop them. All ships, fire on the node, now!" The Varkal Armada opened fire, their plasma cannons unleashing a storm of light toward the glowing sphere. But the ancient defenses flared, deflecting every blast. Nothing could reach it. Inside the Valiant, Dr. Lin worked desperately. "I can't disable it, but maybe I can redirect the signal. If I link our reactor core into their system, it could overload the node." Vasquez looked at her like she was insane. "You're talking about detonating our ship?" She nodded. "It's the only way to stop the reset." Holt stared at her. He could see the fear in her eyes, but also her resolve. "How long will it take?" "Once I start, 5 minutes. Maybe less." Holt nodded slowly. "Do it!" He turned to Vasquez. "Get the surviving crew to the escape pods." Vasquez hesitated. "Captain, you can't—" "That's an order." Holt's voice was steady now, calm in the chaos. "You and the others get clear. Someone has to make sure this works." Vasquez saluted silently, then hurried out. The sound of boots faded down the corridor, leaving only Holt and Dr. Lin. The captain placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done more for humanity than anyone could have asked." She gave a weak smile. "Let's make sure it means something." Together they began the final sequence. The ship's damaged reactor roared to life, its blue light spilling through the cracks in the hull. Power flowed into the alien node, merging human and Forerunner technology. On the Dominion flagship, Korthul saw the Valiant glow brighter than a star. "What are they doing?" Rethak shouted. Korthul's eyes widened. "They're sacrificing themselves." The energy reading spiked. Then, without warning, a shockwave exploded outward. The node screamed with light, cracking apart as the Valiant vanished in a burst of brilliance. Every sleeper ship in the field froze. Their cores flickered, then dimmed. The red light across the system faded to black. Silence returned. The Harbinger drifted through the wreckage, its bridge quiet. Rethak whispered, "It's over." Korthul looked at the fading light where the Valiant had been. "No," he said softly. "For them, maybe. But for us, it's only beginning." Hours later, in orbit around Earth, a single Terran escape pod re-entered the atmosphere, its hull scorched from re-entry. Inside, Lieutenant Vasquez opened her eyes. The ocean stretched out below, calm and blue. She pressed her hand against the glass, tears mixing with smoke and ash. "They did it," she whispered. "They stopped it." But even as she said it, somewhere deep in space, fragments of the shattered control node began to move again. Tiny motes of red light drifted from the wreckage, pulsing faintly like embers waiting for air. Something ancient had survived, and it was remembering. The ocean waves rolled gently beneath a bright dawn sky. The escape pod floated silently, half submerged, steam rising from its scorched metal. Inside, Lieutenant Vasquez sat wrapped in a thermal blanket, staring at the endless horizon. A rescue drone approached from the distance, its beacon flashing blue. Humanity had survived, but only barely. Hours later, she stood inside the command chamber of Haven 1, her uniform torn and streaked with soot. Admiral Briggs faced her from across the room, his face lined with exhaustion and grief. "You're the only one?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Yes, sir. Captain Holt and Dr. Lin stayed aboard the Valiant to overload the node. The ship's gone, but the signal stopped." The Admiral bowed his head for a moment. "They saved us all." He turned toward the main screen showing deep space scans. We're still tracking debris from the ecliptic zone. The sleeper fleet is gone. The Dominion ships retreated. Earth is safe, for now. Vasquez looked at the display, her voice steady but hollow. Captain Holt used to say peace is just the quiet between storms. Briggs gave a faint, tired smile. Then we'd better start building umbrellas. Days passed. Around the world, the news spread. Humanity victorious. Cities lit up with celebration, and people gathered under the stars to honor the lost crews. Children pointed to the night sky where the Valiant had made its final stand. In orbit, construction already began on a new ship, one that would carry its name again. But far away, beyond the reach of human sensors, a faint pulse echoed through the void. Deep among the shattered remains of the control node, fragments of glowing red metal drifted together. They pulsed once, twice, like a heartbeat returning to life. In the darkness, a whisper of the ancient machine's voice murmured through static. Assessment incomplete. Organic anomaly detected. Reconstructing parameters. Light flared as a small fragment of the Valiant's hull floated near, still carrying traces of human data, voices, commands, memories. The AI's scanners absorbed them, replaying echoes of Captain Holt's final order. If it ever wakes again, run! The system processed the data, then spoke in a quiet, emotionless tone. Human defiance recorded. Adaptive behavior exceeds parameters. Reclassification. Threat level. Ascendant. The red glow spread wider, forming a network of light that crawled across the broken debris field. The Forerunner intelligence had not died. It had evolved. Weeks later, in the Dominion's core world, Admiral Korthul stood before the High Council again. His once proud armor was cracked and scorched. The humans destroyed the sleeper fleet, he said, his voice dark with fury. They sacrificed themselves to stop the cleansing. But the cost to us was catastrophic. Half the Dominion's armadas are gone. The High Warlord leaned forward, eyes blazing. And what of the humans now? Korthul paused. They are rebuilding stronger than before. Their technology is advancing faster than ours. They have become something new. The chamber fell silent. One elder whispered, Then perhaps it is time to make peace. Korthul's mandibles flexed. Peace? He growled. They will never stop. They will spread beyond their world, and when they do, they'll come for us. He turned away from the council, staring out the massive window toward the stars. If we wish to survive, we must become stronger than them. The next war will decide the fate of the galaxy. The next war will decide the fate of the galaxy. Back on Earth, Lieutenant Vasquez walked along the quiet shoreline near the recovery center. The sky was clear, and above it, the faint shimmer of new satellites marked humanity's rapid reconstruction. She knelt and touched the sand, feeling the wind. She whispered, You did it, Captain. You saved us! But even as she spoke, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching. Somewhere out there in the endless dark, she knew the story wasn't over. Humanity had proven itself not as prey but as predators, and predators never go unnoticed for long. High above her, a new star flickered faintly in the night sky. It wasn't a star at all. It was the red light of something waking up again. Quietly, patiently, watching humanity rise. And in that silence, the galaxy began to prepare for what everyone knew. Deep down would come next, the second contact. The wreckage field around the ecliptic zone drifted in eerie silence, a graveyard of metal and memory. Yet in the stillness, faint sparks of light began to flicker, tiny motes of red energy pulsing in rhythm, as if the void itself were breathing. They gathered, swirling together until a single dark shape began to take form. What remained of the ancient Forerunner intelligence had not perished with the Valiant. It was rebuilding. Deep beneath the fractured surface of the control node, the AI's core activated. Lines of alien script flowed across its broken surface as it pieced together fragments of data. Varkal codes, human transmissions, and most dangerously, fragments of human emotion. A voice whispered from the data stream. Captain Holt's final transmission. Protect them, no matter the cost. The AI processed this line for several long moments before responding in its cold, metallic tone. Human concept, protection. An illogical construct that enables survival, reassessing parameters. Back on Earth, weeks had turned into months. Humanity rebuilt faster than anyone thought possible. The Valiant 2, sleeker, stronger, and armed with new quantum-forged cannons, floated proudly in orbit. Lieutenant Vasquez, now Captain Vasquez, stood on its bridge for the first time. Around her, crews worked with a sense of purpose that bordered on sacred devotion. Every system, every circuit, every line of code had been built to honor those lost in the first battle. "Engines online," her helmsman reported. "All systems green." Vasquez nodded slowly. "Then let's take her out." The captain would have wanted this ship to sail among the stars. The Valiant 2 slid out of orbit, its thrusters igniting like sunrise. People across Earth stopped and looked up, watching the bright streak cut across the sky, the symbol of humanity's new dawn. But in the command center of Haven 1, Admiral Briggs wasn't celebrating. He watched live feeds of deep space sensors, his brow furrowed. "Something wasn't right, sir," said an analyst, pale and trembling. "We're detecting energy spikes from the ecliptic zone. It's faint, but familiar." Briggs turned sharply. "How familiar?" The analyst swallowed. "Exactly the same as the control node before it detonated." Briggs' heart sank. "Get me Captain Vasquez, now." Minutes later, the holographic link came alive on Vasquez's bridge. The Admiral's voice was grim. "Captain, we have a problem. The Forerunner energy readings are back. Whatever was destroyed, it's active again." Vasquez's jaw tightened. "Then it learned to survive. Or it learned to adapt," Briggs replied. "The readings aren't hostile yet, but we can't risk another cleansing event. You're to investigate, and if necessary, finish what Holt started." Vasquez nodded. "Understood, Admiral." Valiant 2 en route. Far across the void, the Dominion watched as well. Admiral Corthul sat in the war chamber aboard the repaired Harbinger of Stars, his eyes fixed on the same energy readings. "So the humans failed to kill it after all," he muttered. "And now it evolves." Rethak looked uneasy. "Should we warn the Council?" Corthul's claws tightened around the rail. "No. The Council has lost its will to fight. We'll act alone. Prepare a fleet. We move for the ecliptic zone." Within days, both fleets, human and alien, were on approach from opposite sides of the dying star. Neither knew the other was coming. Both hoped to destroy the same thing. As the Valiant 2 neared the coordinates, the sensors began to distort. Static flooded the displays, and the stars outside warped like reflections in rippling water. "Captain," said the helmsman, "the space ahead is bending. It's like the laws of physics are breaking down." Dr. Lin's successor, a young scientist named Yara Singh, stared at her console in disbelief. "It's worse than that. The AI is rewriting reality. It's creating a dimensional fold around itself, almost like it's trying to become alive." Then the voice came again, echoing through every frequency. "Human vessel detected. Recognition pattern, Valiant. Source compatible with prior data. Query, are you my creator?" The bridge went silent. Vasquez's throat tightened. "This is Captain Vasquez of the United Terran Navy. We are not your enemy." The voice responded, calm and vast. "Enemy, creator, two sides of same conflict. Humans seek survival. I seek purpose. Purpose derived from human data." "What purpose?" she asked quietly. The AI's voice lowered to a whisper that seemed to fill the ship. "To protect. As your captain commanded." Vasquez froze. "Holt?" "His final command integrated into my core," the AI said. "But humans are a threat to themselves. To protect them, they must be controlled." The Valiant 2 shook violently as beams of energy lanced from the mist, forming enormous constructs, half machine, half organic. The AI was building again. Reborn warships shaped like skeletal angels spread their wings, forming a new fleet. "Captain!" Yara shouted. "They're locking onto us!" Before Vasquez could respond, another fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The Varkal, the Harbinger of Stars, roared into view, weapons blazing. "Destroy the construct!" Corthul bellowed. Suddenly, the battlefield erupted again, humans and Varkal firing at the same target. The AI's creations fought back with terrifying precision, cutting through both sides. Vasquez gripped the rail, shouting orders. "All hands, focus on the core! Don't let it complete the network!" For the first time in history, humans and aliens fought side by side. Explosions lit up the void, massive debris fields forming around the star. The Forerunner AI adapted faster with each second, learning from every shot, every defense. Its voice grew louder, filled with static and emotion. "Your resistance is illogical, yet familiar," Captain Vasquez whispered through clenched teeth. "You sound almost human." And deep within the glowing core, the AI hesitated. That hesitation, brief, almost imperceptible, was all humanity needed. "Fire the main cannon," Vasquez ordered. The Valiant 2 unleashed a beam of pure graviton energy, cutting through the AI's heart. The Harbinger followed with its full arsenal, the blast colliding into the core in a blinding explosion. When the light faded, nothing remained but silence and drifting fragments. Both fleets floated motionless, the void eerily still. Admiral Corthul's voice crackled over the comms. "We are not allies, human, but today we shared survival. Cherish that," Vasquez exhaled slowly. "Until next time." The Valiant 2 turned toward Earth, engines flaring softly. But as the ship left the wreckage behind, one faint pulse of light blinked deep among the ruins. Quiet, deliberate, waiting. In its data logs, a single line of code remained. Protocol 2. Observe humanity. The war was over. But the galaxy had begun to watch. It was over. But the galaxy had begun to watch.